Why is it whenever Arsenal do something, people react slightly differently? There's a different agenda, a different motive, a different judgment. I'll give you an example. Saliba against Brighton, for the first time ever in Premier League history, gives away a penalty for missing a header. Against Brighton in the first fixture, Declan Rice kicks the ball away and it was a red card. The same month, Trossard kicks the ball away against Man City, and in countless other situations, that's happened. It's not been a foul or a yellow card. Arsenal surround the referee. Bang, bang, bang. It's a fine. Players get booked. Loads of other fixtures this season. It's happened. I think Chelsea are the only other team to have been penalised. And then Gary Neville, I actually really like Gary Neville. I'm a big fan of what he says and does. But he's asked a question on Sky Sports yesterday and just completely avoids the question and now says it's inexcusable. There's no excuse why Arsenal shouldn't win the league like they planned for this injury crisis. That doesn't need to say they should be held for account for not going out there and signing anyone. But everything's painted with a different brush of Arsenal. What I'm getting at, whether it's the injuries, whether it's the red cards, whether it's the referees, whether it's the commentators, the pundits, people on social media, everyone judges Arsenal differently. Give another example. Cole Palmer right now is not firing on all cylinders. If that was Bukayo Saka, people would be in the street saying he's overrated, he's not that good, he's crap, he's this and that. You know, I'll give you another example. Van Dijk makes a huge error. No one really talks about it. If it's Gabriel or Saliba, he's a bozo. He's not one of the best centre-backs in the world. It's very, looking at the way Arsenal play and the way things happen online, they are just judged differently. I want to talk about, before I get into that, make sure you go down and drop a like. Make sure you have that subscribe button. Around 90% of you who watch the content are not subscribed. I want to watch this Gary Neville bit of, this was yesterday on Sky Sports. Peter Dury asked him a question basically suggesting, can Mikel Merino be the answer to Arsenal's struggles? Listen to what he's got to say.
Is Mikel Merino capable of being Arsenal's starting centre-forward?
They're going to have to come up with something.
So straight away, just completely, doesn't really give an answer. Just you'll get to what I'm going to say. Just watch.
And look, I said before the game today in the Sky Sports Newscast, I have got very little sympathy for Arsenal. They knew at the start of the season that they were short in centre forward. They knew.
Okay. They knew in January Arsenal should have brought a player in, whether it's Gyökeres, Osimhen, Nico Williams, or Cunha. Right? That is poor from Arsenal. They should have brought a player in. But to say since the beginning of the season they were going to be short, no one thought Sterling would be this bad. Leandro Trossard, Martinelli, Havertz, Jesus, and Sterling. Most teams have between 6 and 7 attackers. It's very unfortunate right now that 4 of Arsenal's 6 are out injured. Fortunately for Arsenal, Wanyeri, I keep butchering his name. He has come onto the scene and looks an unbelievable talent. But Gary Neville is dunking on Arsenal, slamming on Arsenal right now, and they won the game.
Knew that they might be, if Havertz got injured, that they were in a position where they didn't have the quality up top. So they've known about it. They've also had 2 title races.
Gary, you can say this about every single team in the Premier League. If Erling Haaland gets injured right now, who plays up front for Manchester City? If Mohamed Salah gets injured on the right-hand side for Liverpool, who's going to score 30 goals a season? If Virgil van Dijk gets injured for Liverpool, who's going to come in and play right-sided centre-back? If Kevin De Bruyne or Phil Foden gets injured right now, can you really rely on that midfield to create enough chances? If Martinez at Villa gets injured, who goes in goal? You can say that about every single goddamn team in the Premier League. That's lazy punditry.
So they know what it's like. So this is not an inexperienced team anymore. It's not an inexperienced manager, and it's not an inexperienced situation for them to be in. So I always say that ultimately, did you know that this could have happened before the start of the season? Yeah. What could it have been?
I mean, yes, it was a chance it could happen, but what are we doing here? What was the chances over the space of a matter of weeks? Arsenal lose Havertz with a season-ending injury, right? Martinelli out for 6 weeks, Saka out for 3 months, and Gabriel Jesus misses to the end of the season. Name another team in recent years where they've lost their best player for 3 months and every player around in that possible position in a title race where it could happen. The only other answer, like it's happened to Liverpool. Don't get me wrong, they had a massive injury crisis, and it happened to Manchester City when they lost Kevin De Bruyne, but they had Phil Foden. I understand his argument in terms of they should have gone out there and signed the player in January, but I don't really get why he's not really answering the question.
Foreseen, yes, it could. You know, we knew that Arsenal lacked goals up top and a top centre forward. I'm not saying they should have gone desperately bad.
They don't lack goals up top, though, do they, Gary? Because they get their goals from everywhere. Arsenal are the third highest scoring team in the league. Yes, they might not have a prolific 30-goal a season player like Haaland and Salah, but they've scored more goals than Chelsea, than Bournemouth, than Newcastle, who have got a prolific goal scorer in Isak. They score more goals than Aston Villa, who have got a prolific goal scorer in Ollie Watkins. They've scored more goals than Spurs, who have got prolific goal scorers in Son and Solanke. Like, what are we doing here?
But they knew in the January transfer window that there was an issue there. Again, couldn't get any business done. So this could have always happened. It has happened.
Couldn't get any business done because Arsenal couldn't get Isak. Probably could have got Williams. They put the money down. Gyökeres didn't want to go. And a lot of Arsenal fans would rather they go all out for an Isak or Gyökeres in the summer rather than getting a 6-month stopgap. What would have been smart would have been to get a loan from somewhere like Germany or Italy who could come in and do a job like an Osimhen potentially for 6 months on obligation to buy. That would have been perfect. But for whatever reason, they didn't.
I thought it might be Declan Rice coming from behind and from midfield and going forward. And Jorginho and Partey might be deeper, or even Merino and Partey might be deeper. But it's ended up that Merino's obviously gone forward and he's been the one that's the threat in the box.
Declan Rice does make a lot of these advanced attacking runs. And I do think, I said this on the terrace earlier, Arsenal will have to have a player they rely on and depend on week by week. This week it might have been Merino. Next week against West Ham it might be Declan Rice. Against Forest it might be Gabriel. The most important thing is getting a win. If they don't, Liverpool will run away with it.
Sometimes...
Listen to those Levy out chants in the background. Music to my ears. Big up change for Tottenham.
Good can come out of what seems to be bad, and you can sort of develop something together. It's going to be tough for Arsenal. They're playing against Leicester in the bottom 3 yesterday, and they're going to have to...
Yes, I understand Leicester are in the bottom 3, but they got past it. There's no easy game when you're in a title race because everyone ups their game. Leicester are fighting for their lives. Leicester recently beat us. They beat Spurs. So, you know, Man United struggled against them in the FA Cup. Anyone in this league can beat anyone right now. Like, just because they beat Leicester, it was away from home. They struggled, but they got over the line. And that's the most important thing.
Tough games coming up. So I wouldn't say it's all plain sailing because they scored with 10 minutes to go and then obviously a little bit later than that. But it was a good moment for them. They have to find a way.
I agree with this bit. They do have to find a way. Like I said, it could be Gabriel against West Ham. Could be Declan Rice against Forest. Could be, you know, Ben White coming back. They just have to get into April with Martinelli and Saka back. If they're still within 4 or 5 points with those two back, looking at the way Liverpool played, it might be a one-off. It could just be fatigue in that second half against Wolves. I think it's going to be really, really interesting for the remainder of the season because if they drop into a bit of a dip, who knows?
No excuses. When you've been in a title race for 2 years on the bounce, you spent hundreds of millions. You knew you had a slight weakness at centre forward. You can't act all surprised when you sort of 10, 15 games to go and you're in a title race and you think, oh, feel sorry for yourselves. That's not the way in which it can be. And I'm sure Mikel Arteta's not feeling that way either.
No. Well, I think that's all the business, Gary. So,
yeah, that's fair.
if I may just say so,
how cold is it?
it's
Peter,
very
this
cold.
weekend? Oh
It's
my
very
God.
cold.
I think the way Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher speak about Arsenal at times, they clearly don't like Arsenal for whatever reason. Gary Neville played against some of the best Arsenal teams under Wenger, but if you just watch the way they speak, it's different punditry to the way they speak about Manchester City, for instance. And that might be because City have won. That might be because City have been rivals of Liverpool and obviously huge rivals of Man United, but it's just different. Lots of people think Jamie Carragher has an agenda. I actually like both Carragher and Neville. I just think at times, like Gary Neville didn't really answer Peter Dury's question throughout that entire conversation, but I enjoyed it. Make sure you go down and drop a like. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you all soon.